Good evening, Jamsters, and welcome to another edition of the Suns Jam Session Podcast. Plenty to talk about on this edition as we delve into the Northeast Division of the NBA. And of course, there's that whole Bobby Sarver thing that we're going to be talking about, Matthew. Robert Sarver. The saga has ended or is just beginning, or who knows anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost over, maybe. Who knows? But he's coming back, so that's gonna be awkward.
Yes.
It might be a little awkward him walking back through those doors after a year. Makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And it's definitely something that we're going to touch on the front end of this podcast. And then, of course, we're going to delve into the Northeast Division, which is something that, is definitely going to affect the Phoenix Suns, seen as it's a Western Conference foe and seen as the Utah Jazz have completely changed how that division looks. So it's going to be interesting talking about what they've done, the transactions they've done, and how that kind of affects the Phoenix Suns, right?
Yeah. And I'm so glad Utah Jazz are blown up.
Me too.
I think that's 100% of us. So I think we're going to be happy to talk about that one.
It's just, we tired of that team, right? Tired of every season, the same shit.
Yeah. No, we're sick of the players that were on it. Now they're in different places. So let's see if it actually helps them in their careers a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it makes them, because they weren't really fan favorites over there in Utah. So maybe it like blossoms their career into something where they become an actual player you can root for. Somewhere else.
Don't know if that'll ever happen for me, especially with Donovan Mitchell. But you know what? We'll save all that. How you been, man? What's going on?
I've been good. A lot of football going on. Right?
A lot of football going on.
How are you,
man?
How's things, John?
I'm good. I'm in pain.
Yeah.
It's a sciatic nerve
shit,
huh? Man. Yeah, that sciatic nerve stuff. For any of our listeners who have ever had sciatic nerve issues, you feel me. It's just painful. It's annoying. And so today I went to Sonoran Spine. I had an appointment there because I thought I was going to go there and get an MRI. So I show up, fill out the paperwork. I sit in there. They're like, does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? How's that feel? I'm like, all of the above. And they're like, all right, perfect. Well, we need to send you to go get an MRI. I was like, oh, I thought I thought like today would be the day where it's like I'd get an MRI. They could take a look at some photos and be like, oh, okay, clearly it's a pinched nerve, or clearly it's the piriformis muscle in your gluteus maximus. That's the problem. And let's go ahead and find a solution. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to send your information to another place. They're going to call you and reach out to make an appointment. And it's almost like the way I felt like it, and this is kind of my first really personal journey into the health system, right? I'm typically like a healthy dude, like cholesterol, a little bit high, but like typically I'm a healthy dude. So it's my first time experiencing this. And this is exactly what this felt like. It felt like me going, hey, Matthew, tomorrow, 7:00, let's have a podcast. Okay. And then you show up. And then when you arrive at that podcast, like, perfect. Welcome to the podcast. Are you available tomorrow for another podcast? It's like scheduling a meeting to have another meeting. And that's what it felt like.
That's why you don't deal with real doctors, dude. I think they always just like send you to other places. Go to the naturopathic doctors. They get down to business, start crushing some stuff up. They strip off their clothes, set up a fire, dance around the fire a little bit.
Tell you not to eat
get down
corn.
to business. Yeah, exactly. That's a bummer. You're all excited. You get over there and they're telling you to go somewhere else the next day. Yeah. I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, it is what it is, but it's just I can't sleep at night because of the pain in my butt. The nerve just fires and wakes you up, and you're just like, like
I get
the
that
dog
too.
Comes running in.
Dude, my butthole hurts sometimes. Like I think it's like I get abducted or something, and like all of a sudden my butthole hurts and I wake up.
And where are you?
I'm in my room.
Oh,
I must have just came back though.
They beamed you down, Scotty. Well, I have a different kind of pain in the ass. Mine's more of a nerve and like the gluteus. The hole is fine. The whole and that's all there is to report here at the Suns Jam Session Podcast. John's hole is fine. It's fine. Well, welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Suns Jam Session Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're enjoying this, whether you're watching along live on YouTube or listening on Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. If you're on Apple, give us a 5-star review. And again, it's going to be a fun and interesting season ahead of us, and it's going to start with some very interesting news relative to Robert Sarver. So if you're sitting around and you need to pop something open, I recommend a corn-free beer.
Oh, I remember those.
Budweiser, the king of beers. Pop them if you got them.
Pop it open.
It didn't really do much. It's probably because it has lack of corn, but let's talk some Suns, baby. Suns fans, new intro, new music. Matthew,
New intro. I love
what are
it.
your thoughts?
I like it. It reminds me of like a Ringer intro.
Yeah,
Did you
it's
make that
kinda
yourself? You
I
did,
did.
didn't you?
I
Yeah, I can just tell. There's like one person on the Ringer that makes all their intros, and it just seemed like something that guy would have put out. I love
I
it.
appreciate that. That's kind of what I was going for. What's your favorite Ringer intro?
Um. Oh man, I don't know. I think the one for I can't remember. I know the Ryan Russillo one's okay,
Yeah,
but it just sounds like farts, kind of.
it does
Um,
kind of sound like fun.
but I like there's one, I don't remember if I even listened to that podcast anymore, but there was one, it was an NBA one, but it wasn't the one, it wasn't the mismatch one, it was another one.
Or the
But
real ones.
maybe, yeah. But
I
what's
gotta
yours?
say, the fantasy football show that they have at the Ringer, I just love the way it's just
It's
like
pretty good.
slow
Yeah.
builds, and it's like welcome. It drops at the right time, so I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
that. New intro, getting ready. Here we go. New season kicking off, and what better stuff to kick off with than Robert Sarver information? The news finally broke yesterday morning about 9 a.m. We've all been waiting for about a year now. Some allegations came out. Baxter Holmes reported that last year about a bunch of different people who, were remaining anonymous because they didn't want to have retaliation occur at work. But they were talking about a lot of the negative things that Robert Sarver said and did, and some of the actions he did, and kind of the way that he conducted himself around the Phoenix Suns organization and in the actual workplace. And it's interesting to think of because from the outside looking in, we're fans of a team. We're fans of the Phoenix Suns, and we love the product that's on the court most of the times, sometimes. And we've been through a decade before where we weren't necessarily a big fan of the product that was on the court. But we care about this team because we have an emotional connection to this team. And one thing that gets lost in the shuffle a lot of time is the fact that there's a lot of people who make what the Phoenix Suns do happen. And at the head of that and walking around the office essentially is you have Robert Sarver. And, much akin to any workplace, there's workplace politics, and there's things that should happen and things that shouldn't happen in a workplace. And it sounds like the Phoenix Suns, were alleged to have a culture that allowed some of these things to occur. And it finally came out after those reports about a year ago. Shams Charania tweeted out yesterday that the NBA has suspended Suns owner Robert Sarver for 1 year from the Suns and Mercury organization based on the league investigation. Sarver has also been fined $10 million and must complete training program focused on respect and appropriate workplace conduct. Do you think that training is going to work for him?
You know what? I don't know. Is this like a first or second chance thing? I feel like, a lot of people always deserve a second chance, right? The first chance, I don't know what the hell that is, but a second chance. Let's give this guy maybe a second chance. Maybe that's what they're thinking, but it's kind of weird because I think that a lot of people can change and they can improve themselves. This guy's old as hell, right? I mean, he's obviously a misogynist, a racist. There's things that he threw around the office where you just can't do and you would be let go. A lot of people could get a second chance, and it's an opportunity for him to do so. It's a year off, and if he were to come back, which would be hella awkward, but if he's a changed man, I mean, he would be maybe accepted back. It's just he knows he's so personal with a lot of these guys, even Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker probably knows him very, very well. And there were a lot of people like Silver said where there's just certain things that he heard, Silver, that is, that, he can't really release, but he just knows like they were kind of not positive things, but they're just things that kind of held them back from like really just letting him go, instead of the 1 year, just getting rid of him, abandoning him. And I just think that there's just something there with Sarver, with this group of owners, with this organization, people he knows, where we just don't know, obviously, but that's what's keeping him there still. And we just don't know what that is. It's just like one of those things where it's like, it's kind of like the people that don't admit that they love Trump, right? They support Trump because of the way he is, right? It's just like those people won't come out and say, like, hey, like, actually, he's a decent guy, keep him around. You just can't do that in this kind of situation. But it just seems like that's what's holding him there, and maybe a second chance. But obviously, we all want him out. We always have for a long time, and including this just made it even worse. So we all want him out for sure. But I don't know, man. It's kind of a weird ruling where it's just 1 year.
Yeah, well, the training program, like, have you ever been to corporate training programs before where you have to sit down and they're like, all right, it's our annual, like, anti-harassment training, right? Have you ever been a part of any of those?
No.
Wow, you've not worked for
Yeah.
corporations then. I not only have to like attend them, sometimes I have to facilitate them with my teams and things of that nature. And like 9 times out of 10, you got somebody in the corner who's not listening. Essentially, it's a check mark. It's like, well, we told him that you couldn't say those words. We had that training on the 13th of July. Remember that? I mean, that's the whole purpose of those things. So I don't know if this is really going to like rehabilitate Robert Sarver from just kind of being the scuzzy guy that he is. And again, this is from the outside looking in. I don't know him personally.
Yeah.
And in the court of public opinion, he has been guilty for about a year now. I don't know if, again, treatment, and going to these different classes, this appropriate workplace conduct program is going to change the way that he looks and feels about people and the way that he verbalizes that. He might not say it in the workplace, but behind closed doors, he's still probably a prick. $10 million, that's a big chunk of change, not to Robert Sarver. And Shams Charania went on to kind of break it down a little bit. He said, key findings, the NBA says Robert Sarver said the N-word at least 5 times when recounting statement of others, made sex-related inappropriate comments about physical appearance of females, inappropriate physical conduct towards men, engaging in harsh treatment. When you first saw all this, what were your initial thoughts when you saw the results of this investigation that was reported?
Honestly, though, while it's even going on for the last year, I just think that a lot of the people that are in the room with him, that they're looking around at each other like, you know what, we've all done this stuff. Everything that everyone's complaining about, this is just happening everywhere in the NBA, in the NFL, anywhere where someone has power like a Robert Sarver.
Yeah.
So I just think like it wasn't too long. I think it's only been a couple years since like really like the whole blackface thing and saying the N-word, like that's nail in the coffin. Like you can't, like people used to joke around still on TV shows. Joe Rogan got almost excommunicated from everything because of it. Like they were using the word just like nonchalantly.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, no, you can't. So it's just, I can just see a lot of the people like Sarver who are in charge are just, they're like, this is the way we've been acting. So could we just, give him the year and, we'll all do better. We just can't act this way anymore. So I just think it's because there was nothing, of course, on tape. There was nothing recorded.
Yeah.
It's
there
all
was
he
no
said, she
smoking
said
gun.
stuff. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, of course, it sucks with the 1 year when that was released. I'm like, okay, but it just makes sense because I just feel like a lot of these guys are just that way. That's the way the work environment's there. I mean, you hear about it all the time.
Yeah, I think that's, again, from the outside looking in, the frustrating thing is, my reaction is I see what the penalty is. And again, I say $10 million, that's nothing to Sarver. Okay, he's got to go to some kind of training. That's nothing. I'm like, how long's he gone? Suspended 1 year? 1 year. If I was to do any of those things in the workplace, I'd be canned. There'd be no, hey, listen, man, like you're really valuable to the company. I don't care if I was, like I'm in leadership. I should be held extra accountable for my actions. I lead the way. I set the standard. And if I was to do anything like that, my ass would be on the street sooner than I could finish trying to justify anything that I tried to say. And when you see what the penalty is for Sarver, only one thing comes to mind.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. These rules don't apply to us, man. This is a different world we're living in, because you got to think like with no smoking gun, it's a good old boys club. At the end of the day, good, bad, or indifferent, it's exactly what it is. The NBA, much akin to many corporate cultures throughout the entire entire world, is a good old boys club. And, one good thing that's come from social media is it's given people a voice. It's given people an opportunity to stand up and try to fight back against the machine, if you will, and say, hey, like this is something that happened to me. And you can't just make it go away because there's so many conduits to express exactly what's happened to me. And more people are utilizing this voice in a positive manner to, it's not tattletaling. It's telling the truth of things that have happened in their workplace that is negative. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with massive corporations that make millions and millions of dollars and billionaires who are in a club of, there's 30 of them who are majority owners of teams in the NBA, they're not going to sit there and let one of their guys die on the cross because because that sets a standard, that sets a precedent. If one guy, to what you just said, Matthew, somebody remembers Joe Rogan, making some joke a few years ago, 10, 15 years ago, and they're trying to, cancel him essentially. it's the same thing for these owners. It's like, well, if we kicked out Bobby Sarver out of the league for saying these negative things and acting in this rude manner, Lord knows that they've all done it too. And anybody at any time, any place could come with some accusations and ultimately cost these guys their jobs. So unfortunately, it's just another example of how the system is broken, on how the accountability exists for, not the majority, or when you're one of the elite, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you're one of the elite, it doesn't matter.
That's how it's supposed to be. That's the way you make it, right? You're one of these fools that are up there that are in power. Like, that's how you make it in this world, basically. If you want the money, a lot of them, like, they're just that way. And, it's been that way for forever until, of course, recently.
Yeah.
But that's how we all looked up to, hey,
even recently,
you got to be an asshole to be in that position. Like, you have to be the asshole. You have to be the guy, but you can't tell. You get in a certain situation. If you see things, you hear things, you don't say anything. And it's been that way. It's still that way. It's just now it's getting a little bit easier. But like, Robert Sarver just has to be abandoned and try to find his way back to the NBA if he wants to, in a way. But he
will,
be abandoned.
This is a slap on his wrist.
I know. I mean, like, he needs, like, I'm saying, like, he needed just to be, like, John, it's like just gone from the NBA. But
yeah, it's unacceptable behavior, and again, it creates a culture that is toxic and people don't want to be a part of. And, then things can start to fall apart. And to your point, as you were saying earlier, it's like, okay, he goes away for a year. Okay, then it's awkward when he has to come back. And that's another frustrating part of this. Great read by Dave King on Bright Side of the Sun today in saying, okay, well, as Robert Sarver departs, who's going to be the decision maker while he's gone? And Robert Sarver is going to be one of the people who is actually picking who his replacement is for a year. And Dave made some great points in that article as kind of to why, because you don't want to have somebody who takes over for a year and then kind of ruins the culture, tries to actually change things, God forbid. And then Sarver has to come back and then it's awkward for him. So he has a hand in kind of choosing who his replacement is. And again, I think it's just it's a slap on the wrist for the guy. And then you hear what his statement is following everything that went on. And the following statement is attributed to Mr. Sarver. Good leadership requires accountability. For the Suns and Mercury organizations, that begins with me. While I disagree with some of the particulars of the NBA's report, I would like to apologize for my words and actions that offended our employees. I take full responsibility for what I have done. I'm sorry for causing this pain, and these errors in judgment are not consistent with my personal philosophy or my values. I accept the consequences of the NBA's decision. This moment is an opportunity for me to demonstrate a capacity to learn and grow as we continue to build a working culture where every employee feels comfortable and valued. I think he talks about, like, he's just happy to be a member of the Suns. It's just, I'm good job whoever wrote that for him.
Yeah, these things don't matter to me. I don't really care. And like, we were talking about Joe Rogan. The only way, like, you can really apologize is to really, like, kind of what he did, where you just go on video, you admit that you make mistakes and you work towards it. Like, it's just kind of weird, like, how he didn't agree with some of it. It's like, of course, there's probably some things in there that, like, he was like, I don't remember that shit. Like, he has a full life of being an asshole. Like, how does he remember everything?
Every time he was an asshole?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how would he ever remember every single bit of it? So, I mean, it's just weird. These statements that come out is bullshit. Who cares? Whatever's happening for the year where they're actually doing the investigation, like, who knows what the fuck's going on? Like, how many things are actually left out? Like, I'm reading about the Manson murders. It's like, oh my God, there's so many things where it's like, what? I didn't know that. Like, I'm not saying this is the Manson murders, but I'm just saying, like, there's so much shit that goes on and we don't know, but it just has to be that way. Otherwise, we burn this mother down, right? If we knew exactly what was going on, like, we would never be Suns fans, right?
No. Well, if we knew exactly what was going on, the sport wouldn't exist, because there's probably so much lewd and inappropriate conduct. And I mean, that's just the seedy side of the NBA is something that's kind of been overturned during this investigation. And I think it's valuable for people to kind of digest that and think about that when they are fans of this team. Good, bad, or indifferent. As a leader, you shouldn't conduct yourself in that manner, and I don't think that it's any excuse. And he says that in the statement. And to your point, you're right. It doesn't matter. Who cares what his statement is? Because, like you said, it is all bullshit. It's the good old boys club. He got away with a slap on the wrist. It's annoying that he continues to get away with this kind of actions. And, he says he's going to learn, and this is an opportunity to learn. Like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Every report, you hear great things from some of the players, but you see a lot of the other, the minutia, if you will. And it's just a lot of negative things. And it's unfortunate because it's a negative story about the Phoenix Suns. And, it's a team that I love. And I don't know how many, There's only one guy I know who defends Robert Sarver, and that's So Says Jay. And I know that they just released a pod over on Fanning the Flames, and I got to listen to that one because he's just,
Oh, really?
I think he just
Okay.
defends him because So Says Jay is, he's got that lawyer in him. And he likes to argue just to argue. It's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
fun for
yeah.
him. It's fun to try to, outwit you with fact instead of
Yeah.
feeling. And a lot of people have feeling towards Robert Sarver, but this has become fact, and there's consequences due to fact. I think what's frustrating for Suns fans isn't necessarily the fact that there's consequences. It's the lack of the severity of the consequences is what got my blood up a little bit when I first read this.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't feel like anything's really enough nowadays anyways. Right? I mean, if he was just gone from the NBA, like cool, it was
That
well
would be enough.
deserved. That would be enough, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be enough for me. That's all I got to say,
Yeah.
So, anything else on Bobby Sarver that you want to talk about?
No, I can't wait to see him again.
Yeah, whatever. Fuck that guy. Sorry. All right. So what we're going to get into next is we're going to be looking at the Northwest Division as we prepare
Ooh.
for the regular season. So this is the division that includes the Denver Nuggets, the Portland Trailblazers, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Utah Jazz. So where do you want to start? Should we start with Utah?
Let's do it.
They're the ones who are making all of the
Yeah, we
different.
already brought him up. So.
Yeah, already brought them up. So let's take a look at what they've done this offseason. They're a team that's definitely made so many moves that it was hard to fit it all in into one thing. This is a team that just blew it up. You look at DraftKings, their over/under win total projection is 25.5 wins. Currently, they are plus 20,000 to win the division. This is a team, that's been winning the division for quite some time. And they're a plus 20,000. And, well, it's quite simple. Via trade, they gained Leandro Balmero from Minnesota, Jared Vanderbilt from Minnesota, Walker Kessler from Minnesota, Malik Beasley from Minnesota, and Pat Bev from Minnesota. That was all part of the trade for Rudy Gobert. They also received Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, and I can't get – you say this guy's name.
Archie Arkabali?
There you go.
Is that
from Cleveland in the Donovan Mitchell trade. They also got THT, Taylor Horton Tucker from the Lakers, as well as Stanley Johnson. Didn't have any picks in the draft. They lost Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Daniel House, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, Trent Force, Pat Bev, who they gave to the Lakers in an effort to get Taylor Horton Tucker and Stanley Johnson, and Royce O'Neal to the Brooklyn Nets. They still have free agents in Hassan Whiteside and Eric Pascal, and their starting five is who is playing point guard, is at shooting guard, at small forward, at power forward, and Clue at center. So who has a fucking clue is the starting five for this team.
Yeah.
Complete blow-up job, man. Complete blow-up job.
Yeah, they needed it. And there's only one more thing, though. Now is like they got rid of everybody. No more Utah in the playoffs for a while. Thank God. It's already hard enough to watch Denver for some reason. And those two going head to head is always a worst looking matchup on TV. But I was like, dude, now the jerseys are here.
Yeah.
Where they changed the jerseys. They had the highlighted jerseys. Now it's like, what is that shit? I feel like that was like the last straw for Donovan Mitchell, just being like, hey, like I got to get out of here, which is basically what was going on, right? Between him and Gobert. And like, no one ever talks about how Mitchell leaving and like, if LeBron or Kevin Durant did this shit, everybody be on their ass, right? Yeah. Now Donovan Mitchell's gone, like nothing. I hear nothing, which is fine because I guess he's obviously not really a superstar, but yeah, they're gone. But you have those jerseys, and like I'm just thinking, like with everyone leaving, how is this destination going to be cool again? How could they make this cool?
It never was cool.
And again, why did I say again? It never was cool. How could they get people to play there? Because that's the way it is nowadays, right? Like we just became a cool destination here in Phoenix, but the Utah Jazz need to do something. And I don't know what to do. Like, what do you freaking do with this team, man? I know they're rebuilding.
That's
just
what they're doing.
Through the draft and then get rid of those jerseys after this year.
The difference between Utah and Phoenix is like we've been a destination in the past, and there's a lot of great things about Phoenix.
Yeah.
Utah never has truly been a destination. Stockton and Malone were players that were drafted there, and they were in a different era in which teams stayed together longer. Players signed 7-8 year contracts just for stability. They were banking on the fact that they could get a long-term paycheck, and they wanted that security for their families. So that's what they did. Utah's never really been a destination. And now after trying to construct a team around Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert for the past 3 seasons, they've constantly and consistently been met with adversity and just they get played out of the playoffs because their style of basketball just wasn't working. So Danny Ainge comes to Utah, goes back to Utah. He actually went to BYU, but after leaving Boston, comes to Utah and did this kind of the same thing that he did in Boston when he first got there. So he blew it up, and he took a fucking stick of dynamite and he chucked it at this roster, and he blew it up. And then as the particles fell down, yes, we got these shitty Jazz jerseys that they're gonna be bringing out. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see we just pulled up a picture of the jerseys. Really fucking basic shit, man. Really, they got a throwback of the Jazz, like the Stockton and Malone era Jazz that went to the 97-98 finals. They've got like one that's white with the Jazz note on it, and then the black and the yellow one are just like the yellow one looks like a fucking highlighter. So they're really in just kind of blow it up mode right now, and you can see that by the roster that they've put forth. I don't know. I mean, who's the best player on this team now? Jared Vanderbilt?
Well, they have Colin
THT?
Sexton, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, they have Colin Sexton,
Yeah.
Larry Markkinen.
But even then, like those are players, Colin Sexton, no one wants to play with. So coming into this, like I was like, all right, so you have Sexton, you have Markkinen. Those aren't players you can really build around. Those are guys you can maybe have on a team where you're trying to build around someone else. But even then, it's like Laurie was looking good last year, but there's just nothing there. They're coming to a ghost town. So it's going to be interesting to see like how terrible they are next year and who else is really added or taken away from the roster. Because we all know this is not the way it's going to be going into next season, I don't feel like.
No. Well, going into next season, they're definitely going to start to make adjustments and try to utilize all their assets to try to rebuild. We've been there, but
yeah,
I don't know if we blew it up in such amazing fashion. So do you think that they hit over 29 wins?
No.
I don't.
No.
If I'm a bet man, I take the under on that all day, man. This is a team because, as you mentioned, you look at Colin Sexton, you look at Laurie Markkinen, you look at Jared Vanderbilt. These are quality players, but these are pieces that are designed to fit around stars, to complement those stars, to take some pressure off of them. They're not designed to be the star. Although Colin Sexton probably would tell you that he's there to be the star, and he's going to be the guy who's Colin Sexton. Like, I would love to see what his numbers are relative to over under on points per game, because that guy's going to shoot it like fucking 30 times a game there.
Yeah, no, it's his actual wet dream. I feel like going there though. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Have his own place, but it must suck. Like every time you're mentioned, it's like players that want to play with you, and then you get traded, and everyone's happy. Like, what does that feel like as a player? It must feel miserable. Unless you're just a miserable person and loves it, but that must be. Oh, I don't know how that would feel, but I would feel very, very grim.
I would too. It's just like that sucks.
Yeah.
That's the end of that. All right, who do you want to talk about next, Matthew?
Let's do the Minnesota Timberwolves, baby.
All right, the Timbies. All right. So they're projected to have 48 and a half wins. Okay, and if you take a look at DraftKings and you're trying to figure out, which is the best team to bet on to win the division, they're actually in second place right now. They are a plus 140. And it's interesting because you take a look at, again, if you're watching along on YouTube, you can see the graphic where we talk about all the different transactions that they did this past season. They had a ton of transactions, so much akin to the Utah Jazz, who had a bunch of transactions as they blew it up. The Wolves are really trying to maneuver their roster around and put the pieces around like Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns in an effort to try to go and get a win. And I know the projected starting five is wrong here because they got Rudy Gobert, and I don't even have him in there at center. But we'll start with who they added via free agency. They got Kyle Anderson from Memphis. They got both Austin Rivers and Bryn Forbes from Denver, so they added some depth there. CJ Ellaby from Portland. Via trade, they acquired Rudy Gobert, Josh Minot, who was the one of the picks from the Charlotte Hornets, Wendell Moore Jr. from Houston, Ty Washington, and Patrick Beverly from Memphis, and Taurean Prince. They didn't have Pat Bev. They actually got rid of him. I did that one wrong. Taurean Prince from Cleveland. They had one pick, the 19th pick, Jay Lavaria. They lost Leandro Balmero and Jared Vanderbilt and Walker Kessler and Malik Beasley and Patrick Beverly to Utah. As mentioned before, Bryce McCowens to Charlotte and Ty Washington to Houston. And from a free agent standpoint, they still they also lost Josh Okogie to Phoenix, McKinley Wright to Orlando, Kendall Brown to Indiana, Jarrett Culver and Juan Herman Gomez to Memphis, and Ricky Rubio to Cleveland. So, I mean, this is a complete roster haul. Free agents Jake Layman and Greg Monroe. Good old Greg Monroe. He's still floating around in the league.
He is, huh?
That
I remember
motherfucker.
arguing about him being a good center like 5 years ago.
I wanted him to
And
be a
that's
good center 5 years ago. That's
yeah,
the issue.
exactly.
You look at their projected starting five, it's most likely going to be Austin Rivers at the point, D'Angelo Russell playing the 2 guard, Anthony Edwards at small forward, Karl Anthony Towns playing power forward with Rudy Gobert playing center. So I think their wins are so high because that's a good starting lineup, man. You have definitely a lot of scoring. Rudy Gobert is going to add some defensive prowess during the regular season. What do you think of this Wolves team and how they have navigated the offseason?
I have an interesting perspective going into next year. Actually, towards the whole year, ending into next year, where I think there's going to be a trade. I think there's going to be a trade. Yeah, I think what's going on right now is we're going to end up loving Rudy Gobert next year. I think he's going to be I seriously think so. I think we're going to love him playing on this team with Anthony Edwards. I think he's a good piece to play next to. I think he can catch those lobs, the only thing he does offensively. But I think he plays hard, dude. And I think that's what Anthony Edwards brings to his team. He wants to win, all right? Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, how many times am I going to say it? Like, is he going to be involved in the trade for DeAndre Ayton? That's what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about Karl Anthony Towns. Just, I don't feel like he has it in him to be on Edwards' level. I think he'll be out. He can't be traded yet till the end of next year. But I think he's going to play himself out of this lineup and out of this team. I think Rudy Gobert will be the sole center on the team. I'm not saying it's not going to work between those two. I just think you're going to see a difference between Gobert and how hard he plays next to an Edwards.
Yeah, but didn't he just have an Edwards in Donovan Mitchell for the past 4 or 5 seasons? Same kind of player, right?
Edwards is amazing.
Edwards is amazing offensively.
Yeah. No, Edwards, he'll pick up the hustle. Defensively, it'll be there. It's always the thing with these young guys. The defense will come because he plays tough and he wants to be in the playoffs every year now.
I don't know.
He does a lot more than Mitchell. He can finish at the rim. The ball handling skills.
Mitchell can finish at the rim.
Yeah, I know.
Donovan Mitchell's got great ball handling skills.
He disappears a lot now. Donovan Mitchell, he was awesome for a while there. Last year and the year before, I don't know if it's because of him and Rudy Gobert and how much they had a tiff that just took away from his game. He wasn't the same player.
He wasn't engaged at all on defense. That's for sure.
No, he wasn't. He would disappear, and the losses they had in the playoffs were just disgusting. And I think what you're going to see here, though, is I think Gobert will be a good piece at center. And I think Cat is just eventually going to play himself off this team because I don't think he can win like the way Edwards wants to win. I think that's the thing between him and Mitchell. I know Mitchell wants to win, but Edwards is he's a different kind of athlete, man. That guy,
yeah, he's fantastic.
He can be an absolute number 1. Mitchell can be a number 2, maybe, and number 3. At least he's a number 3.
Well,
he's never been as good as
number 1.
Exactly, but he's never been like as good as the Devin Booker. That comparison of those two, I think that Cat is going to be gone. I think he's going to be traded, and it's nothing like he can do. It's just the way Cat is as a player. Unless he can change his demeanor, which is very, very tough because he's so far into his career. I just think he's going to be gone by the end of actually going into next summer.
Well, I could see that because you take a look at Karl Anthony Towns' contract, and currently he's on year 4 of his rookie extension, his 5-year, $158. So he hasn't signed anything past this. So next season is the last season of his deal. And this is something that's an interesting observation, is let's say that the Minnesota Timberwolves have done all of this rehauling. And I think you're right. The guy you want to build around on this team is Anthony Edwards. He's a different kind of player. He has a different level of competitiveness. And I think that athletically, he is one of the, he might be a top 5 athletic guy in this league. That's for another podcast, another time to really kind of break down who is on that list. And I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about, LeBron James, a great athlete. Like, yeah, but he's not at peak LeBron anymore. Like Anthony Edwards is unbelievable. And I think that, they're going to try the Twin Towers thing, and shout out to the Jamsters who are watching along in the chat. You got Dagoon. He says Gogurt and Towns will be tripping over each other, which will be interesting. Luke Carter says,
nice profile pick too.
Yeah, I don't think the Twin Towers works in the modern NBA. And what's interesting is Karl Anthony Towns is going to love living by the perimeter because he likes to shoot the 3 ball. The guy shoots a ton of threes, and he doesn't like to play defense. He can, but he doesn't want to. So as much as we don't, from a Twin Tower standpoint, I don't think he's going to be down there on the block a lot, at least offensively. Defensively, if you're smart, you're trying to run some action at Karl Anthony Towns and get him down the paint and then maybe do some kick out stuff. But I think that it's a team that offensively is going to be very effective like Minnesota has been over recent years. But defensively, it's going to take them a while to really figure that out. Now, you've added Rudy Gobert, who is a defensive player of the year multiple times, and that is going to assist with the shot deterrence at the rim. But I think that there's going to be a lot of switches and ways to manipulate their defense and get them in mismatches in which Karl-Anthony Towns has to be accountable to your point, Matthew, where he might start to feel like a fool, and he might feel like, yeah, I've always kind of, it's like Anthony Davis, like, yeah, dude, I just want to play the 4. All I want to do is play the 4. Like Karl-Anthony Towns, like, okay, sweet, I get to play the 4 now. Oh man, there's a lot of guys who are very athletic who play the 4 now, and it's going to be really hard for him to keep up with them. So it'll be interesting to see how his performance goes and what this team is record-wise come the All-Star break or come the trade deadline. Because to your point, Matthew, I could see that. Now, you did the same thing last year where you called Kristaps Porzingis. Maybe Karl-Anthony Towns is one of those guys who's a big name moved at the trade deadline.
Well, no, you actually can't. You can't trade him till July 7th of next year. So that's the one thing I was like, dang it, it's a trade clause. So I think that the only thing that they can do is play through the season. I think they're going to be fine, but he is just like a black hole kind of, in a way where he's just going to have his shots, do what he wants to do on the floor. That's what I'm saying. I don't feel like it fits in that way. It's not like they're going to be tripping over each other, like they said in the chat, as much because it will be on different parts of the floor. I just think that Cat is going to play him play himself off the team, just because it just doesn't fit the way they're going to want to play there.
Do you think that's attitude based, that he'll kind of go into Kevin Love pout mode?
Yeah, it's not like that. It's just like he's just not a winning player. That's the only way I can put it. I don't think he's a winning player. I'm not saying like, oh, come to Minnesota. We're a winning team. We want to win here. Like, it's not that way. But I think they're trying to move in that direction. I think that they're going to get that from Gobert and Edwards. But, it just makes me think it's like they made this big trade for Gobert, and now they have Edwards. Like, they have to move that piece too. Like, they have to, because it doesn't make sense to me to have both of them. And I think they know that. They're just trying to get through this year with these two guys and maybe move on from Cat next year.
And you're good point. This is an experiment for them. Hey, if this works, fantastic. If not, Cat is going to be the one who most likely will get moved. Because again, you look at like Rudy Gobert's contract. Holy shit, he's making a shite ton of money. But he's on year 2 of a 5-year, $205 million contract. Right. So he's going to be, when his player option hits in 25, 26, it's 46 mil. Now granted, that'll be kind of a discount once we get past the new media rights deal, which I think is in 25, 26. It's 24, 25 or 25, 26. So that'll start to look like a steal. But no, you're right. I mean, they're kind of pot committed right now on Gobert. It'll be interesting to see how they navigate having both of those guys out there. Over under 49.5 wins. What do you think?
I think they'll go over. I think they're going to just be a really good regular season team.
I'm going to go under on them.
Are you? Okay.
And you're right, because much akin to being with the Jazz, they were a good regular season team with Gobert, but they couldn't put it together in the playoffs. I see under. I see some growing pains with this team. I see some injuries perhaps can take this team down, because a lot of their players are injury prone. They're doing their best to kind of fortify the depth on this team. You look further down the roster, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, again with Bryn Forbes there. I think that they have some depth, but it'll be interesting to see if they can hold up. I think the one reason that this team is currently plus 140 on DraftKings is because it's kind of a weak division. Again, we already talked about the Jazz. And you look at the next team that we're going to talk about, and that's the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? Like, This is a team that's win total is projected at 23.5. They didn't add anybody via free agency. They add Ousmane Dieng, Daniel Tice, and JaMychal Green via trade. The draft, they have Chet Holmgren, who's out for the season now. They also got Jalen Williams with the 12th pick, Peyton Watson, and then just to be dicks, with the 34th pick, they drafted another guy named Jalen Williams, spelt differently, but so they drafted 2 guys named Jalen Williams because they had so many picks, and they probably were like, fuck, I forget which one we scouted. And then, of course, with JaMychal Green, they lost him, so they garnered JaMychal Green, then they traded him to Golden State, and they lost KZ Okpala, free agents Melvin Frazier. So, you look at their projected 40 starting 5, SGA, Lou Dort, Josh Giddey, Poku, Derek Favors. It's definitely a fun and exciting kind of offensive team, but at the same time, they have zero depth, and this is a team that's kind of, once Chet Holmgren went down, they kind of put them in their Wangambamba sweepstakes. How do you say that
Yeah.
French kid's name?
Yeah, I think that's it. It
Wang
makes
and
sense for
Baba.
them to get what were they calling him on the Ringer today? It was like Mr. something, right? Or Mr. W, I don't know. Um I forget. But, rest in peace, Chet. Poor guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was so excited to watch this team because I love their pieces. Like they have if SGA is playing, I mean SGA, Lou Dort, Josh Giddey, and even Trey Mann, like they're just fun pieces to have on your team. And I wanted to see how that looked, and maybe they can add someone at the trade deadline or something. Like last year, I wanted them to go after Sabonis. I wanted them to add him. Just like go for it. Try to make the playoffs. Try to make the play in. Do something. But obviously, they're waiting and waiting and waiting. I don't know what to do with his team because I just think there's going to be a trade, of course, and you know who it is, right? SGA.
Mm-hmm.
But can he be traded? I try to do the trade machine with him, and they won't let me trade him. So if anybody in the
Well,
chat
he just
knows,
signed. He just
I know he
signed a
just signed,
yeah
but
5 year 179. 30 mil this year, 33 the next. I mean, he's with the team until 2027. My assumption is he's probably not tradable in the trade deadline because he just signed this extension, much akin to DeAndre Ayton.
okay. Well, I mean, if it's then I don't know. I was just thinking like if you can get a Kyle Lowry, trade him to like obviously the Toronto Raptors. Or I'm sorry, not the Toronto Raptors. What the fuck am I talking about, dude?
The
Kyle
Miami
Lowry,
Heat.
who's Miami Heat. There you go. Put him on the Miami Heat, and then you can do that little buyout situation where I think the Thunder do it every year, where they get some older player over here, and they just set up the season, they rehabilitate, and then the next year they play so well, so they could do
Yeah.
that. But I was just thinking about that, but I don't know, man. I'm just sick of these wasted years with these Thunder players and stuff. It's just
Hey,
it
I'm
gets
okay with it,
old,
man.
man.
We used to have wasted years, so I don't have to root for him.
Like
Shit.
this though, it's funny because I feel like we're always actually really, really trying to do something, but it's just like the Thunder, just like, we'll take our time. Like they're always just like they're the tortoise, basically, I guess. And we were
Yeah,
just
they've been like that for a long time. I mean, it's not too long ago though. I mean, you think about it, 3-4 years ago, this is a team that had Russell
true.
Westbrook. It had Paul George on this team. You've had Chris Paul.
Yeah,
You've had a lot of big names come through here, and those players left, and they got a shit ton of picks, and they're just trying to figure out the right guys. And that's why, again, you look at that starting lineup: SGA, Lou Dort, Josh Giddey's fun as shit to watch.
yeah,
Poku, I
he
just threw in
is.
there. I don't know if he'll actually be a starter. Derek Favors, but again, yeah, it's Victor Wembanyama.
Okay.
Wembanyama. We have to get used to that name because he's going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And he's kind of the sweepstakes this year. And I think that they look at him and they go, that's another kind of modern NBA player who could fit in here. And, they could spend 5 years trying to win. But, Oklahoma City, whereas I look at like some teams and I go, that's a good league pass team, like Charlotte. Charlotte isn't projected to do much this year, but I'm still going to tune in and kind of watch them. Oklahoma City Thunder's a team like I hate their colors. I hate their jerseys. I hate their logo. I think they have the worst logo in the fucking league.
Yeah.
And then you have just like a shit show on the court. I will not tune in and watch any of their games and watch any of the development. And you know what? They'll beat the Suns once this year. Write it on the board. It always happens.
You think so, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that nothing else.
Well,
And
then
nothing else. Let's do it.
Let's talk about another team has a very low win total projected. And that is the Portland Trailblazers, 39.5. They kind of have this team being a 500 team. Gary Payton Jr., or the second, is who they've acquired via free agency, as well as Devontae Cook from the Spurs. And via trade, they got Jeremy Grant. That's the big move. They also got Ismail Kamagate, who they ended up trading to Denver. But they got Joe Ingles. They lost him to Milwaukee. Free agents: Eric Bledsoe, Ben McLemore, Elijah Hughes, Keljin Blevins.
Mm-hmm.
And their projected starting 5 is Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, Nasir Little, Jeremy Grant, and Yusef Nurkic. Interesting thing for Portland, huh? This is a team that last year, I think you and I, when we did the season previews, we took a look at this team and we realized that, they had some decent pieces there. And but they were definitely taking a step backwards. And then, of course, they blew it up in the middle of the season. This is a team that I'm going to be very interesting to see how they come together and how they compete.
Yeah, I mean, how exciting. I don't I don't know. Yeah, I'm excited to watch them. It's the health thing, and then I think they can win. Like Los Sun says in the chat, I think they can win 50. or else they actually says 45 wins. So, who, I'm thinking that they're going to be at least 50 wins to this team. It's a good
Really?
regular. Yeah, I think it's a good regular season team, man. I think that there's just something about playing Damian Lillard and Nurkic when they're together, they're healthy. And, you throw in Jeremy Grant there. It's going to be a team that's going to just a lot of hustle, I feel like, on this team. And they're just going to be able to like keep up with a lot of teams out in the West. I'm not saying they're a playoff threat, but who knows? But I mean, it comes down to just the regular season. And if they can stay healthy, I don't know. I don't even want to say it. I was going to say Damian Lillard, all that stuff. It gets old after a while. It gets
No,
old for
I
me
hear
even
you.
saying it every preview we do at the season. And that's even old to say that too. Like it's just old even talking about this, but good colors though. I love that. Looks good. Black and red.
The graphic looks really nice. It's one of the better graphics that we put together here at the
What am I
Suns
talking
Jam
about?
Session podcast. Yeah, I mean,
What are
they
your
just,
thoughts though, dude?
I don't know. I mean, they're a team that, they re-signed Nurkic to a 4-year, $70 million contract, which I think is a great contract for them. They waived a bunch of guys. They really didn't, Jeremy Grant was the big one. They went and they got Jeremy Grant. They didn't have to give up too much to get him. I think that was the shocking thing. Everybody was talking about what it's going to take to get Jeremy Grant. He was one of those kind of big names that people thought were going to be moved. And when it came down to it, all they gave up was a 2025 first round pick that was top 4 protected, a 2026 second round pick, which was a pick swap, and then a 2022 second round pick. That's all they gave up for Jeremy Grant was 3 picks, and one of them is a pick swap, and the other one's top 4 protected. So I think everyone was kind of shocked by that, but this is a team that I really thought after doing what they did last year, right? I mean, you take a look at what their transactions were last year, right? They get Norman Powell, right, from the Toronto Raptors, if I remember correctly. They gave up like Rodney Hood, Gary Trent Jr. gave him up, so they bring him Norman Powell, and then they get Larry. They have Larry Nance on the team for a little bit, and they're starting to build around Dame Lillard, and you're like, this is fucking fantastic. And then what they end up doing is with that trade with the New Orleans Pelicans at the trade deadline, they give up Larry Nance Jr. They give up CJ McCollum. They get like Josh Hart. They get a couple other players, a couple other picks, and they don't do anything this offseason that I really feel fortifies the overall roster. Again, you go through the current roster and you look at their depth and whatnot. Dame Lillard, Anthony Simons are the 2 top paid guys. Obviously, Dame's at 42.4. He gets paid a ton. You got Jeremy Grant, Yusuf Nurkic, Josh Hart, who I was really big on last year. I wanted the Suns to get Gary Payton II, Shaedon Sharpe, Nasir Little, Justice Winslow's on the team, Keon Johnson, former Spur, Drew Eubanks, Grainbound. I mean, the depth is lacking. So they had all these really good assets, and I just feel like, again, they just didn't get enough for them. They gave up picks, so they kind of made a steal in getting Jeremy Grant. But for Norman Powell going to the Clippers and for CJ McCollum, they got picks and stuff, but I mean, they're kind of in rebuild mode too, and it kind of sucks for Dame.
Yeah, they kind of are and they kind of aren't. I mean, I think that they just have to have their pieces at the starting 5, and they have them, to win some games out in the West. I know they don't have the depth, but I mean, during the season, it means a lot to have the depth. I mean, the Suns have always had the depth during the season, and then they just don't in the playoffs. It always fails them towards the end, but in the season, it matters a lot. But I don't know, man. Maybe there's some more moves out there for them. I'm not sure what's going
Potentially. And again, Dame is, mad respect to Dame, much akin to Devin Booker. He is I am staying here kind of guy, and I'll ride the wave with you. But man, it's like Portland is just another one of those teams who, again, their win total is 35.5 or 39.5. Am I going under again? Like, I think this is the 3rd team or the 4th team that I'm just saying under in the Northeast Division thus far.
Who's going to win?
Well, the last team, the Nuggets. All right, there you go. They're projected for 49.5 win, and I think that's a massive over. I think that this is a team that could win, 55, almost 60 games if they can stay healthy, obviously. But you look at what they did in free agency. They added DeAndre Jordan from the Philadelphia 76ers, which is kind of a nice reprieve at backup center. He's old. He's kind of, he's used up, but you can throw him out there for 5-10 minutes and he can just foul people. Via trade, they got Kadavius Caldwell-Pope from Washington as well as Ish Smith. They're the ones who ultimately ended up with Ismail Kamagate from Portland by way of Detroit. Peyton Watson, they also got from OKC. They've drafted Christian Braun with the 21st pick in the 2022 NBA draft. They lost Monte Morris and Will Barton to Washington. They lost Austin Rivers and Bryn Forbes to Minnesota. So they really took a hit on their guard depth. JaMychal Green, they lost to OKC. Free agents, fuck you, Campazzo, DeMarcus Cousins, Marcus Howard. So if you look at their projected starting five, you have Jamal Murray, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. Thoughts on the Denver Nuggets? And the only reason I think they're going to win a ton of games is they're in this division. They got to play all these teams. I think they're just going to beat up on all these teams.
Yeah, true. I mean, I can see like 55 wins, but I love their starting lineup. Obviously, if they're healthy, that's always a thing with this team, just like kind of like the Blazers in a way, but even worse, just because they have so much potential. And we've seen it. It's not the whole Jamal Murray thing, but the Michael Porter Jr., he's just something that some guy that can be transcendent. I think he's a very, very fascinating player that could be even a star, maybe a superstar, if he can stay healthy, dude, because that guy can just flat out shoot. For that size, he's insanely talented. So he helps Nikola Jokic, who won MVP last year. So it's a good team. It's a fucking really good team. And what scares me is now it's just like, if they're good on paper and stuff, you can just see a lot of people really taking them over the Suns this year. You know what I mean? In a way, they kind of always have. But I feel like with what's going on with the Suns and how they didn't Kevin Durant, they're still the same team. I think a lot of people can look at this Nuggets team and think, oh, they actually have a chance to be a higher seed than the Suns.
Mm-hmm.
I say, yeah, go for it. Go ahead. Take the higher seed, because it doesn't matter, right?
Well, and I think, I guess it doesn't matter. I think that part of that thinking is you take a look at the division that the Suns are in, which we'll get to in a couple weeks. The Pacific division is where we'll close out these divisional recaps. Obviously we'll be doing whatever the division is called. I don't even know the name of it. The one that the Mavericks and Houston and the Spurs are in, and the Pelicans and one of
the Midwest, right?
The Midwest, whatever it is.
The Midwest?
We'll be doing that one next week. We'll be doing the Pacific the next. So I can see what you're saying, and I agree with you. The Nuggets are going to be a team that I think is going to play well against their division. They're going to rack up some wins. They're going to look pretty good against some pretty bad teams. And to your point, the narrative will be, well, this team will have a higher seed than the Phoenix Suns simply because their record, and because the Suns play the Pacific Division, and it's one of the hardest divisions in the NBA, with the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Clippers in there, and those Spurs, and those Kings, because fuck the Lakers. But I mean, the Nuggets are projected to win this division, and it's clear why. They're currently negative 140. And I think they've the most talent. They have a back-to-back MVP. Jamal Murray's going to be back. He's going to be healthy. This team's going to be competitive. They're going to be hungry. They're going to be angry. And I think that this is going to be a team that's going to be kind of, like you said, in the eyes of the national media, they're going to be a team that's people are going to really kind of be drawn to, I feel. Southwest Division, Hayes.0. Yes, Southwest Division is that last division.
Thank you. Yeah, and
thank you.
They will, but they'll be like kind of like of course they're the comeback team, but they're just kind of like the sexier team now. I know it doesn't look like it too much, but I just think a lot of they're going to be like the pick. They're going to be like the media pick to do something this year.
Yes.
Maybe it's not like to win a championship, because obviously we're talking about the Pacific Division, but it's the team that can make some noise. That's going to be this Nuggets team this year.
I completely agree. Anything else you want to talk about on this division? Do you think the Nuggets are the team that ultimately wins the Northwest Division?
Yeah, I do. Unless OKC just starts out hot and they get that trade that I want. No,
they're the ones who they end up with Karl Anthony Towns.
It might be close though between Minnesota and them. I mean, Minnesota's going to rack up the wins. I just think that I know it's going to maybe take some time to gel, but I just think they're going to come out lightning fast.
Well, they are the most boring division in the Western Conference, so that's why we did it this week. Next week we will be doing the Southwest Division. Anything else you want to talk about? Suns related, otherwise? Did you watch the Big Three tournament at all?
No, I did not. I heard something about Earl Clark. Is there something going on with that dude?
Earl Clark. If for those of you, I remember Earl Clark, man. Just let me start there. Remember Earl Clark?
I do. I was a fan. He just didn't have a motor.
He had no motor, but I loved Earl Clark, and he was. I caught some of the Big Three, and he was on the championship team, and I forget the name of the championship team, but he was on it, and he was putting up like 18 points. They play to I believe 50, and he 18 points a game. 22 points in the clinching win, and I'm like, there's Earl fucking Clark out there, and I'm like. And the words that came to my mind when I thought about Earl Clark and how he performed as a member of the Phoenix Suns was no motor. And then when I saw him in the big three, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. That's like the perfect speed for Earl Clark. There's no full court
perfect
shit.
age from too, right?
Yeah, perfect. They had the celebrity game. Gronk's out there like playing. I was just like, oh, geez, man. And then somebody in my league drafted Gronk. I'm like, interesting.
Yeah. I remember he was at the time my girlfriend's favorite player. She's like, "Oh, who's that guy?" I'm
Earl
like,
Clark. Well, he was on that Louisville
guy,
team that
right?
was so damn good.
Was it
man.
Louisville?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And when the Suns got him, we had like the 14th it was 2007, I think is when we got him. So I don't remember what our pick was, but we got Earl Clark, and I'm like, dude, he is going to take us to the next level. He's going to be one of those bench players who's just going to progress this team into something special right in the middle of the 7 seconds or less era. And yeah, it's like he didn't get much playing time. He had like you said, no motor. He was out there. He looked lost. He looked a lot like I was thinking about this the other day. Who does he remind me of? Who's kind of like Dragon Bender. Dragon Bender was a guy who, like, he had a higher motor, obviously, but like he just looked lost all the time because he didn't know what he was supposed to be. Am I supposed to shoot from the outside? Do they want me to dunk? I can't play physical. And I think Earl Clark was just kind of the same realm. So,
yeah,
congratulations to Earl Clark for winning a Big Three championship.
Yeah, congrats. I'm sorry I missed it too.
Yeah, it was pretty
fun to watch.
Have you caught up on any of the Euro stuff that's going on? Seen Dario Saric out there looking ever so sexy with the man bun?
No, don't tell me. Does he have a man bun? That's awesome.
Dude, he's been Dario Saric's man bun.
He's not balding though. He's not balding though, baby.
It's a beautiful man bun. It's almost like Lou. Remember when Sweet Lou Amundsen used to rock the man bun?
Yeah, I didn't like it on him.
Well, it looks good on Dario. It looks good on Dario. That's all I'm
good.
saying.
Yeah. Lou was too white trash. I mean, Sarge can pull it off. Sarge can do anything, dude. That guy's awesome.
Man, nobody falls down like Dario Saric, man. What are your thoughts on Dak being out for like 8 to 8 weeks?
Oh, that's the way you do it. Actually, I was watching a video. Did you see there were some fans throwing shit at him when he's going in the tunnel? Yeah, I didn't see that till today.
Yeah.
I mean, you would never know watching those games that the fans actually give a shit because they don't make any noise, but I guess they did. That's the way it goes. I didn't really have any hopes, just like you with the Cardinals this year. I didn't have any high hopes for the Cowboys. I just thought it was going to be a down year. Now it's going to be even worse. So won't even watch probably.
No, you'll watch. You just won't care. That's the key. You watch. You just won't care. So says Jay's in the chat. He says he currently has a man bun too. I'll tell you this, Justin. Probably looks sexy as hell on you, just like it does Dario Saric. I guarantee that. That's why you guys need to do a video podcast so you can show off the many looks of Justin. Because he
has so much.
I got one look, bearded guy with a hat. That's like my one look.
Yeah, I've been this way since I was.
Justin can have like long hair, then he can like man bun it. Then he'll have like a beard, and then he'll have like a Fu Manchu, and like he does like the guy's a chameleon. He's got so many different looks.
Yeah, every time I see a picture,
I got
of him,
one.
It's
look.
not like I glance at the picture. I don't study them for very long, but he always looks different. So
he does. He's a chameleon. So on that note, well, I think we'll go ahead and get out of here. Thank you, Jamsters, for once again joining us, whether you're watching along on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. If you happen to be here, hit the thumbs up button down below. We appreciate it. Helps with the algorithms, lets people know, hey, I want to watch some Suns content. I'm going to go check out the Suns Jam Session podcast. If you're listening to the podcast, we appreciate it too. That's how I prefer my pods. I like to listen to them. So subscribe, rate, review. If you're on Spotify, give us a 5-star. If you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. We truly appreciate it. We'll be coming to you again next Wednesday at 8 p.m. as we explore the Southwest Division. And if there's any new Suns updates, we'll be giving those to you. One thing, I've got one mission, Matthew. So one thing I'm going to be doing this year is, thanks to Dave King, I'm going to be assisting with covering Suns Media Day for Bright Side of the Sun this year.
Nice. I was going to ask you about that because last year, weren't you?
I was supposed to go, but I had to fly to Sacramento the morning of Media Day. I got a late assignment at work. I was like, motherfucker, of all the goddamn days they're going to send me,
when
is
Suns
that? Media Day. The 26th of September, Monday the 26th.
Dude, nice. You're gonna see him up and close.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna ask him the hard hitting questions. So if anybody has any ideas for questions, leave comments in the YouTube chat, and maybe I'll ask some of them. But there's one thing I want to do. I want to get like Devin Booker to be like, "This is Devin Booker, and you're listening to the Suns Jam Session podcast." And I want to overlay that over our intro. That's like I want to do that, and obviously I want to find a lot of good content.
You're gonna get kicked out. Are you going with Dave, or are you doing it for him?
With Dave and a couple other guys from Brightside.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Very
show up in
awesome,
all
dude.
my Suns gear, Dave, and I'm just gonna be total fanboy. I'm gonna wear my Ayton jersey backwards and just be like, "I love the
Oh
Suns."
my god, dude.
No, I'm gonna be a
Be
professional.
professional,
That's what
right?
I am. I am a
All right.
professional.
Well,
Unless I'm
congrats, dude.
doing a
That's
podcast,
really exciting news.
it'll be really fun, and we'll drop it over this intro once we get that audio. So looking forward to it, Matthew.
Yeah, everyone go home and love your media day family.